In this video, you'll learn what water represents in the Bible. This information will transform how you view this powerful biblical symbol. The key is to know the three main things water represents: life, death, and transition between these two states. When God created the heavens and the earth in the beginning, the earth was only water. It was the starting point, the raw material from which life and order would emerge. On the second creation day, God separated the waters above and the waters below by creating a firmament between them. The waters above became the heavenly waters that dwell at God's throne. It's the place where meaning and order exist and where God's will is done. The waters below, away from God's presence, became the unpredictable world seas that brought chaos, floodwaters, judgment, and, ultimately, death. For the ancient Jewish people, large bodies of water represented danger and instability, a place where one could not live permanently, and a place of sea monsters. The Bible depicts the unruly Gentile nations as raging seas, while Israel is a people of the Promised Land. In the Old Testament, leaders of God's people were farmers and herdsmen who guided Israel to the age of the Messiah. In the New Testament, they are primarily fishermen because of the shift from herding Israelites to fishing men from the Gentile seas. When the seas rage enough, they create spiritual sea monsters, beasts. In Daniel 7, 4 beasts arise from the sea that symbolize Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, all Gentile empires. However, God rules over the raging seas, as is famously depicted when Jesus walked on stormy waters. According to John 4:14 and 7:37-39, water represents the Holy Spirit, the giver of life, who dwells in the new covenant believers. Believers embody the living water and become fountains for it, conveying God's presence to others through their speech and actions. The symbolism of God's people watering unbelievers can be found already in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 32:2 says, "My doctrine will drop as the rain. My speech will condense as the dew, as the misty rain on the tender grass, as the showers on the herb." The symbolism is also seen in Exodus 15, when Israel came to Elim after being baptized in the sea, in the crossing of the Red Sea. They encamped in Elim by 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, representing the 12 tribes of Israel and the 70 nations of the world, from Genesis 10 being watered by the 12 springs. Crossing the Red Sea wasn't the only time God delivered his people through the waters to a better place. This part of the Exodus narrative is repeated many times in the Bible. God delivered Noah across water to a new world. Jacob crossed a river on his way to the land God promised to his fathers. God delivered Jonah across the water in a sea creature's belly. Joshua led the Israelites across the Jordan River to the Promised Land. The water, crossing in the Old Testament's Exodus narratives, separated God's people from their old lives, ushering them into a new, elevated reality. This pattern is also present in Christian baptism. The believers are baptized by water, and according to Romans 6:4, they die and are buried with Jesus in the baptism, so they can walk in the newness of life. Before humanity fell, the Garden of Eden was set as a place where God would meet man. A freely flowing stream from the above-residing heavenly waters would flow through the garden. After Noah's flood, however, the heavenly water became scarce and could only be found in underground wells that the patriarchs dug. Trees were planted around these wells, mimicking the garden setting in Eden. The patriarchs not only dug wells, but often found their Gentile wives at wells too. The image is repeated in the New Testament when Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at a well and offers her living water. The scene symbolizes Jesus as a divine husband meeting with his bride, the church, and offering her the Holy Spirit. Once God came to dwell on earth again in Moses' tabernacle, the water associated with worship moved from underground to above it. The water source became progressively more prominent in each new setting. There was a water laver before the tabernacle for priests to wash their hands and feet before entering the holy place. In Solomon's temple, the laver was replaced by a large bronze sea carried by 12 bulls representing the 12 tribes of Israel. In Ezekiel's vision of the temple of the future, an ever-deepening river flows out of it. The river flows to the most desolate and dried-up place in the world, the Dead Sea Valley, and changes its salt water to fresh. Fishermen stand along the river shores and fish all kinds of fish. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow on both banks of the river, completing Ezekiel's Edenic vision. The climax of all these images is seen in Jesus' crucifixion, where he voluntarily accepts the excruciating death that ratifies the new covenant. His body is pierced, and life-giving water and blood flow from his wound to redeem the creation. When this world has ended, in the New Jerusalem, a river of water of life flows from the throne of God through the Edenic, garden-like city. The river waters the tree of life, which grows on both sides of the river, rendering crossing over the river unnecessary.